Hello. We've talked in our last few sessions about what God is like, that he is unchanging and all-knowing and everywhere present and all-powerful. But today we're thinking about the fact that God is personal. He's a personal God, a God who thinks and acts and plans and feels. He's not an impersonal great spirit or just the universe or Mother Nature, as some philosophies and religions have suggested. Well, how do we know that God is personal? The answer is that God has revealed himself to us, just like any other person in that sense. And of course, he's revealed himself to us through the Bible and ultimately through the Lord Jesus, who is God in the flesh. We describe people, don't we? We might say, oh, that person is cheerful or short-tempered or patient or hard-working, or that person's selfish, they only think of themselves. How do we know what God is like? Well, we might ask an Old Testament believer. Let's say we were able to ask Moses what God is like. Moses would have said he's majestic or overwhelming or mysterious, or the God who gives us commandments. And some of us have that rather naive view about the Old Testament God. But that's an unbalanced view. The Old Testament is full of other aspects of God's personality. For example, God is described as one who comforts us. As one whom his mother comforts, so I will comfort you. You shall be comforted in Jerusalem, God says. In the book of Hosea, there's a beautiful picture about God teaching his people to walk. Listen to this. When Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son. It was I who taught Ephraim to walk. I took them up by their arms. But they didn't know that I healed them. I led them with cords of kindness, with the bands of love. So God is presented in the Old Testament as a caring, loving parent. But of course, as New Testament believers, we are New Testament believers, we have a new vision of God in Jesus, his son. And in 2 Corinthians, there's the contrast between the view that Moses had when he needed a veil to protect himself and protect the people, when he interacted with God, when he could see part of God's nature. And our situation where in 2 Corinthians it says we come with unveiled faces. We have a clearer view because of Jesus. Jesus said, whoever has seen me has seen the Father. In Colossians it says the Son is the image of the invisible God. So in our understanding of Jesus, we understand the personality of God. So what is God like? Well, look at Jesus. He was humble. He was considerate. He was kind. He was fair. He was truthful. He was wise. And he was encouraging to his failing followers. And he was prayerful. Jesus, of course, was a loyal friend. Let's read from John 15. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends. Jesus is our personal friend. You are my friends if you do what I command you. No longer do I call you servants, for the servant doesn't know what his master is doing, but I have called you friends. For all that I heard from my Father, I have made known to you. Why does it matter that we know what sort of person God is, what sort of person Jesus is? Well, it's important because as followers, we have to be imitators. In Ephesians chapter 5, verse 1, Paul says, "Therefore be imitators of God as beloved children, and walk in love as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us, a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God." You can't imitate someone that you don't know. That's why God's revelation in Jesus is so important for us. But just finally, let's think of God's personhood from the words of Hebrews chapter 4 and verse 14. Jesus, the great high priest. This should be a comfort to us in these difficult times. "Since then we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God. Let us hold fast our confession. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us then, with confidence, draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need." We're in a time of need. God is a personal God who loves to hear from us and will listen and answer. God bless.